Okay, so I've done a series of these basics type videos. Did it for the G2, G3, G4. Haven't done it for the G1. Thought I'd do that today. Basically, just kind of go over some of the features of the unit, and that way you could decide, hey, is this something that I might want to purchase? So this is the HP EliteDesk 800 G1 DM, or sometimes called Mini, but usually a DM for desktop Mini. And this came out, probably in the 2015, 2016 timeframe. This particular unit is already 10 years old. This unit uses the Intel 4th generation chips. You could go all the way up to an i7 4765T, which is a actual 4-core, and I believe you can get 8 threads on it. So that's a pretty good chip for for its day. All the way down to the lowly G1820T Celeron. You'll notice that all of these end in a T. That means that these were used they were 30, they call them 35 watt units, but they use a 65 watt power supply. Later, when you have the G2, etc., they would have two models. They would have the non-T processor using models. Those would use a 90 watt power supply, and they were also known as 65 watt units. And then the ones that use the T processor would use a 65 watt power supply, and they would be known as the 35 watt. The 35 watt versus 65 watt have to do with the type of chip that's in there and the power requirements for it. So with this one, with the G1, it came in 4 different form factors. The smallest was this, which was the Desktop Mini or DM. They had something called the Ultra Slim Desktop, USDT. There was the small form factor, also known as SFF, and then the Tower, which essentially is just a desktop turned on its side. The G1 was the only time that HP came out with the Ultra Slim. They didn't do it later on. Later on, they just stuck with the 3 form factors. Within the DM, or the Desktop Mini, you would have things such as the ProDesk 600 and the ProDesk 400. Generally, with those, you get just fewer features, maybe not as many display ports. Maybe you're using, in the 400, slightly less expensive components like networking, Wi-Fi, etc. On the front, you would have, for your headphone jacks, you'd have 2 USB ports. On the back, 2 of the display ports, VGA, which you don't see later on in the units except when you got an adapter for it. This is a line out, and then again another 4 USB ports, your networking port, and power. The power that's used in here uses the same power brick that all the other generations, the G2, G3, G4, 19.5 volts, which is kind of nice because then not having to buy specific power supplies for each of these, and you can reuse them. I find that to be very useful there. A lot of them came with Windows Pro for version 8. One issue with the G1 is that it's not the easiest to work on. This is their first run at it, so things aren't, as nice. Like, as example, I've got to take out these 3 screws to get this sort of metal cage out just to be able to get to the M.2 drive that's in here. That you can put an M.2 NVMe. You can't boot from it unless you do a BIOS mod, which I have a video that shows how to do it. They would put the memory here, where in later units it's underneath the fan. The fan is also underneath here, so putting in memory isn't so bad, although of course if I had a mechanical drive, I got to move that out in order to get to it. This is where you would have your Wi-Fi card. Let's just kind of show what this looks like in here. As far as memory, The spec says the max you can put in here is 16 gig. If you went with the high-end i7 processor, it supposedly does support 32 gig of memory, but again, that's not in the specifications. That would be up to the user to see if they want to experiment with that. Okay, I've taken out the screws. I'll just take out the caddy. Now, of course, when these units were sold, most likely you got a mechanical drive, but in later years, of course, and you can use a SATA SSD. This is a combo cable, both power and data. This is where your memory, Wi-Fi card, and then if we take this off, that's why it's not the easiest to work on. So right away, you're just to be able to get to the fan, you've already taken off the heatsink from the CPU, and I still have to take out the fan in order to get to the M.2. So if you're going to get one of these units, do it right. You know, upgrade and the CPU, all that, all at once. Otherwise, it just gets to be just a mess trying to get in here. These don't always come out as easily as you'd want them to. This is where you would put your M.2. There's the connector, the screw down. Price-wise, these used to be a lot cheaper for some reason, and they've gotten more expensive for some reason. So the cheapest I could see, which was fairly bare bones, was around $50 on eBay. You know, and of course you could pay all the way up to $150 depending on where you go, Amazon, etc. I would suggest probably getting at least something that has the base CPU in there. I would go with a 4590. That way you've got 4 true cores. That's an i5. These guys feel like they're probably almost 1.5 times the weight of the later models. These are tough stuff. I mean, there's not really any plastic. Everything's metal. So they are tough. I had one running on a NAS for at least a year and a half, 24/7. I also used it as a Proxmox node for probably closer to almost 2 years without any issue. They're nice units, good way to get in. Should also be noted, these are not considered Windows 11 machines, meaning, you know, they're not in the prescribed as far as models and CPU and so forth, but I've run Windows 11 on these without any problem whatsoever. Follow my videos. It will show you how to do the installation.